"Don't authenticate that necklace," Brooke Mercer said, and 300 guests watched Reid Santoro stop his own gala for a jeweler everyone else had already dismissed. A foundation executive reached for the velvet display. "Ms. Mercer, the certificate has been cleared." Brooke caught the chain before he could lift it. Under the inspection lamp, the crescent and flame mark gleamed beside the clasp. Her mark, her design, not her work. "The burnish runs left to right," she said. "I finish every master in the opposite direction." This came from a copied model. Across the ballroom, a transaction screen began counting down toward final authentication. Donors shifted. Lawyers stopped whispering. Ryan Caldwell, standing near the investors, went pale. Reid could have buried the problem. Instead, he removed his signature card from the terminal and placed it in Brooke's hand. "Tell me what stops this." The question struck harder than the danger. 6 weeks ago, Brooke had known him only as the man powerful people feared disappointing. Now he was risking his foundation, his mother's name, and millions in commitments on her judgment. Brooke inserted the card and froze the sale. If she was wrong, her entire career ended. If she was right, someone had stolen her design. 6 weeks earlier, Ryan lifted his champagne and said, "I've loved your sister for 8 years." Brooke had repaired cracked gold for strangers all week, but there was no tool on her bench designed for a 6-year engagement broken in one sentence. At the table, Ryan Caldwell held his champagne as if his confession had been a toast instead of an execution. "I've loved Kelsey for 8 years. Brooke stared at him. "Then why did you ask me to marry you?" His shrug was small. "Because she never wanted me." The slap came before Brooke could think about it. Her palm burned. Conversation died around the table. She pulled off the engagement ring, dropped it against Ryan's chest, and stood. In the corridor, he caught up fast. "You're making this bigger than it needs to be." That hurt more than the confession. 6 years of being told she was too sensitive, too suspicious, too insecure about being the largest woman in rooms that treated thinness like permission to belong. "Were you drunk for 8 years?" she asked. Ryan's face hardened. Kelsey appeared behind him, pale and furious. "I never wanted him, Brooke. I never even knew." Brooke believed her. That mattered. 4 days later, Heartbreak still had invoices attached. At Mercer Metal and Stone, Brooke steadied an antique setting beneath her loupe while a customer hovered. "Maybe someone else should finish it," the woman said. Brooke aligned the bent prong, warmed the solder, and restored the stone without scorching the surrounding filigree. Then she turned the piece over and pressed her crescent and flame mark beside the repair. "Someone else could have," Brooke said, handing it back. "But I did." After closing, Kelsey brought takeout and sat behind the counter. Brooke admitted she still caught herself wondering whether Ryan's choice had proved something about her body. "It proved something about Ryan," Kelsey said. Brooke looked toward the neighboring storefront she hoped to lease someday. "Then I'm done building my life around what he thinks." The bell above the door rang. Reid Santoro entered and placed a velvet box on her counter. "I believe you repaired what's inside 9 years ago," he said. Brooke's hand stopped over the clasp. "If you came here to repay me, don't," Brooke said before Reid Santoro could open the velvet box. His gaze flicked to her. "That isn't why I'm here." He opened the box anyway. Brooke forgot the rest of her protest. Inside lay a silver pendant shaped like an olive branch around a blue stone. The clasp had been rebuilt by hand, one hinge slightly thicker than the other because the original metal had been too thin to take another solder joint. "I repaired this," she said. 9 years ago." Brooke looked up sharply. Reid's expression changed only at the edges. "It belonged to my mother." The room seemed to contract around the pendant. Brooke remembered an elegant woman who had counted cash twice, then asked whether the piece could be held until payday. Brooke had repaired it anyway. She wanted to pay in installments, she told me. Reid explained that his mother sometimes left the Santoro name behind because she wanted ordinary conversations with people who did not rearrange themselves around power. After her death, he found the pendant in its box. Beneath it was Brooke's crescent and flame mark. Brooke closed the lid carefully. So, this is gratitude. It's business. He slid a contract across the counter. Santoro Foundation wanted a memorial collection inspired by the pendant. The deadline was 5 weeks. Brooke read every page. By page 3, she circled an exclusivity clause. By page 6, another granting Santoro Holdings approval over design modifications after delivery. No, Reid leaned back. Which one? Both. A faint spark entered his eyes. Brooke rewrote the terms. Shorter exclusivity. No alterations under her name without written approval, and final authority over authentication. Reid studied her changes, then signed. You negotiate with everyone like this. I trusted the wrong man for 6 years. I read everything now. He did not pity her. Good. 3 days later, at the first production review, technicians approved a sample bracelet. Brooke turned it once beneath the bench lamp. This wasn't finished from my master. The room stopped around her. Reid looked at the bracelet, then at Brooke. Show me. The laboratory report said the sample was perfect. Brooke's thumb said otherwise. She turned the bracelet beneath the bench lamp and traced the clasp. See this line? The quality director leaned closer. A polishing variation. No. Brooke rotated the piece. I finish my masters right to left because of how I brace the metal. This runs left to right. A machine copied the shape, but whoever finished it never had my original in hand. Reid looked at Brooke. Can you prove that? Give me my master and 10 minutes. She needed 6. Under magnification, the difference became obvious. Brooke's original carried a faint hand-file arc beneath the hinge, visible only when the light struck sideways. The approved sample had the same dimensions, alloy, even the same microscopic casting flaw, but no file arc. Someone had copied the digital model. The quality director began explaining tolerances. Reid cut across him. Suspend approval. Brooke glanced at him. He added, until she clears it. That should not have affected her. It did. The next argument arrived at her studio, 2 days later in the form of 3 security men standing inside the painted boundary around her workbench. Brooke stopped. Out! The nearest guard looked toward Reid. She did not. I said out. Reid studied the line, then the men. You heard her. They left. Brooke set down her bag. Your people don't enter my workspace without permission. I was told there might be a security risk. And I'm telling you, this is where I use torches, acids, blades, and expensive stones. Surprise visitors are the risk. A smile touched his mouth. Noted. She expected argument. Instead, Reid remained on the customer side of the line. Later, while comparing the pendant with her centerpiece design, Brooke noticed him watching the repaired clasp. You miss her, she said. His expression closed, then opened again. My mother hated being recognized. Brooke looked up. She would leave the car 2 blocks away, dismiss security, buy groceries with cash. Reid touched the velvet box. She said people became less honest when they knew what our name could do. So she came here because I didn't know. She came back because you didn't care after you knew she couldn't pay. The words settled between them. Brooke lowered her eyes. You've been carrying that around for 9 years. Not every day. That is almost reassuring. His laugh was brief and warm. The following week, One executive called Brooke's concern artisan preference, dressed up as risk. Brooke felt the old instinct to soften, to explain until nobody could accuse her of being difficult. She let it pass. "It is risk," she said. "If someone can reproduce my geometry without my finishing sequence, they already have unauthorized production data." The executive turned to Reid. "We can commission another opinion." "Do it," Reid said. For 1 second, Brooke thought he had abandoned her position. Then he continued, "And if the independent examiner confirms her finding, authentication authority moves to Brooke permanently." The examiner confirmed it that afternoon. Reid signed the change in front of the production team. That night, Brooke shouldn't have left when everyone else did. Instead, she stayed beside him in the conference room, comparing the original pendant with her master drawings, while Philadelphia darkened beyond the glass. Reid looked at the empty hallway. "You're off the clock." "I know." "Then why are you still here?" Brooke met his eyes. "Because I want to finish this with you." A week later, a photograph appeared in her inbox. A necklace bearing her crescent and flame mark was listed for sale. Brooke had never made it. Reid's fingers had barely released Brooke's hand when she saw 3 counterfeit versions of her own work waiting beneath the preview lights. Minutes earlier, they had been alone beside his mother's pendant in a private gallery off the ballroom. Brooke had shown him where the repaired hinge still carried a faint solder shadow. Reid had admitted he no longer needed business reasons to visit her studio. "What do you need instead?" she had asked. His answer came quietly. "You." Brooke had closed the distance first. The kiss was brief, deliberate, and devastatingly gentle. Reid did not touch her until she lifted his hand to her waist. Then the preview doors opened. Now Brooke stared at 3 necklaces arranged beneath glass. "Stop distribution." An executive frowned. "These were cleared this morning." Brooke lifted the nearest piece with gloved fingers. The crescent and flame mark was correct. The dimensions were correct. Even the stone setting matched. But the clasp had been polished left to right. She checked the second piece. Same error. The third had no hand file arc beneath the hinge. "These are copies." Around them, donors continued accepting champagne, unaware that the collection had just become evidence. The executive lowered his voice. "We cannot stop the preview over finishing marks." Brooke turned toward Reid. He did not ask whether she was certain. He stepped to the display terminal and canceled release authorization. "Nothing leaves this room unless Brooke clears it." Several heads turned. For the first time that evening, Brooke felt the weight of authority move toward her instead of around her. She ordered every piece separated by batch, photographed, and sealed. While staff scrambled, a procurement analyst pulled up the vendor records tied to the suspicious shipment. Brooke leaned closer to the screen. One billing address made her stomach tighten. Wren Harbor Development. Ryan's Project. The digital copy. The counterfeit listings. The unexplained production access. Suddenly, none of them looked isolated. Then Reid's phone vibrated. A Foundation communications officer had sent him a news alert. Brooke read the headline over his shoulder. "Local jeweler, under review after duplicate Foundation pieces." Surface. Her name appeared in the first sentence. Someone had leaked the story before Brooke had finished inspecting the display, which meant the person behind the copies was already watching their response closely. The preview had stopped. The scandal had not. By morning, Brooke Mercer, not the manufacturer, was attached to the word fraud. The first man who taught Brooke to distrust herself used words. Reid Santoro repeated the injury with passwords, locks, and men she had never asked to follow her. By noon, 2 retailers had frozen orders. A blogger had posted photographs of Brooke entering Santoro Holdings beneath the caption "Favored Jeweler." When she reached her studio, A security car waited across the street, and another man stood beside the rear entrance. Brooke unlocked her office computer. Access suspended. She tried the vendor portal. Same result. Reid! He arrived 20 minutes later, controlled enough to frighten everyone except her. I restricted outside access until we know who copied your files. You restricted my access, temporarily, to my own business. There is a credible threat. Brooke stared at him. Then you tell me. You don't decide what I'm allowed to touch. His expression hardened with worry. I'm trying to keep you safe. Ryan had used different words. You're overreacting. I know what you mean better than you do. Yet the shape of the wound was identical. Someone else replacing her judgment with his. Brooke stepped back when Reid reached toward her. That stopped him. Don't. His hand fell. Near the monitor, a procurement printout caught Brooke's eye. One obsolete vendor code sat beside the suspicious shipment. She knew it. Years earlier, before her software upgrade, Ryan had helped her organize invoices during tax season. He had seen that portal. He had known where she kept archived access sheets. Shame rose, hot and immediate. She folded the printout before Reid noticed what had changed in her face. I'm leaving. You shouldn't be alone tonight. That isn't your decision. Brooke, no. Her voice shook, but not her choice. You understood the line around my workbench. Somehow you decided the rest of my life didn't have one. Reid went still. She took her coat and walked out. He did not order anyone to stop her. That should have helped. It didn't. Brooke spent the afternoon trying to trace the vendor code alone from a cafe 2 blocks away. By the time she admitted she needed the access, Reid had frozen. His security team had already located a warehouse tied to the counterfeit listings. They raided it at dusk. The presses were warm, the work tables were empty. Someone had moved the engraving tools, casting equipment, and primary computers less than an hour earlier. Reid called Brooke himself. We were late. Her fingers tightened around the folded vendor sheet. So was she. For several seconds, neither spoke. Brooke closed her eyes. The night before, Reid had waited for her to choose the distance between them. Tonight, both had acted from fear instead. The difference between protection and control had vanished when they needed trust, and Ryan had gained the time they lost. Then Kelsey called on the second line. Brooke answered. I found that old inventory notebook you left with me, Kelsey said. Why does the numbering pattern in here match the certificates they're showing on the news? Reid restored Brooke's access before asking whether she planned to forgive him. By the time Brooke returned to Mercer Metal and Stone, every restriction on her vendor accounts had been removed. The security car remained across the street, but no one stood inside her workspace. Reid waited on the customer side of the painted line. I protected my fear, not your freedom, he said, and it cost us the warehouse. Brooke set Kelsey's old notebook on the counter. I recognized the vendor code before the raid. His eyes sharpened, but he stayed silent. I didn't tell you because I thought asking for help would mean giving you control again. She opened the notebook. That cost us time, too. Neither apology erased the damage. That was why Brooke believed them. She pushed the notebook toward him. New rule. No decision about me, my studio, or evidence connected to it unless we both know what the other knows. Except immediate physical danger. Agreed. Reid slid her access card back across the counter without touching her hand. Your call. Brooke traced an old batch number, then compared it with photographs from the abandoned warehouse. The copied pieces carried a tooling scratch she recognized from a narrow rolling press. There's a second setup, she said. They moved the finishing tools, not the casting molds. Her identification led Reid's investigators to a smaller workshop before midnight. Inside were digital masters, counterfeit packaging, unfinished pieces, and the missing press. The operator was arrested. By morning, authorities publicly cleared Brooke. Retailers restored orders. The foundation announced a new launch date. For the first time in days, Brooke let herself breathe. Then she examined one forged certificate beneath her desk lamp. The jewelry could have been copied from stolen files. The sentence beside the batch number could not. Brooke looked at the old notebook. Only her pre-digital records used those exact words, and Ryan had once seen them. The machines explained the fake jewelry. One handwritten phrase proved the fake jewelry was never the real objective. Brooke laid Kelsey's notebook beside the forged certificate and circled the sentence beneath the batch number. I stopped using this wording before I moved to digital records. Reid leaned over the counter but did not touch either page. Who saw the old system? Kelsey. Me. Brooke swallowed. And Ryan. The vendor code suddenly stopped looking like a relic. Ryan had seen the portal during tax season. He had seen the handwritten inventory, and Wren Harbor's billing address had appeared inside the production trail. Reid pulled up the seized workshop transactions on Brooke's restored terminal. The counterfeit sales were real, but their timing was wrong for profit. Most clustered around Wren Harbor's bridge financing reviews. Brooke followed the dates with her finger. He didn't need to sell enough jewelry to make money. He needed transactions that looked legitimate, Reid said, and Santoro Foundation provenance. The workshop had been disposable. Once investigators found it, everyone would believe the scheme ended with the manufacturer. Meanwhile, one shipment remained scheduled for authentication at the Foundation relaunch gala. Brooke checked the financing calendar. Midnight. Ryan did not need her designs. He needed her certification, attached to Santoro-backed sales before Wren Harbor's liquidity review closed. Reid's expression turned dangerous. I can shut down the gala. No. Brooke met his eyes. Then he knows we understand. Silence stretched between them. This time Brooke did not hide the rest of her thought. She explained how Ryan could still complete the chain, and where she believed the forged centerpiece would appear. Reid listened until she finished. Then he asked, How do you want to play it? Brooke looked at the clock. 90 minutes, she said. We let him bring us the proof. At 11:17 p.m., Brooke placed the suspect necklace beneath a jeweler's lamp while the man who could command the building asked her one question. What do you need? The relaunch gala glittered beyond the glass partition, donors and executives pretending the previous scandal had ended with an arrested manufacturer. Ryan Caldwell stood near the transaction table in a tailored suit, calm enough to make Brooke certain he still believed he was ahead. She opened Kelsey's notebook beside the necklace. I need procurement locked but visible. No deletions, no transfers, no one removed from the floor unless they become dangerous. Reid glanced toward his security chief, then back to Brooke. Done. And I need you not to interrupt me. His mouth almost curved. Harder. Still done. Brooke carried the necklace into the presentation area herself. Ryan saw the notebook and smiled. You're really going to stake your career on handwritten notes? No, Brooke said. On metal. She held the clasp beneath the inspection camera. The enlarged image appeared on the gala screen. My genuine master was filed by hand beneath this hinge. The arc always leans inward because I brace the piece against my left thumb. This one leans out. Ryan shrugged. Manufacturing variation. Brooke rotated the necklace. Then explained the polishing. The burnish ran left to right. A murmur spread through the donors. Brooke displayed the certificate. This says the piece came from batch 17, completed 3 days before that finishing method was ever approved. The object and the document cannot belong to the same authorized production run. Ryan's confidence thinned. Reid's auditors opened the procurement ledger. Shell company payments appeared beside Foundation purchase references, each routed toward Wren Harbor entities. Ryan stepped forward. Santoro, shut this down. You know what those records expose. Reid could have protected his company by sealing them. Instead, he looked at Brooke. She knew what releasing everything would cost him. Regulatory scrutiny, a profitable waterfront partnership, confidential contracts his enemies would study. "You don't owe me this," she said. "No," Reid replied. "That's why it has to be my choice." He authorized public release. At 11:54, the auditors matched the forged certificates to Wren Harbor's liquidity chain. Ryan turned to Brooke. "You think he'll keep giving things up for you?" The question was his final mistake. Brooke closed the notebook. "He didn't give them up for me. He gave up control because it was right." At 11:59, Wren Harbor's certification failed. Security moved toward Ryan, only after Brooke finished speaking. No gunfire, no dramatic rescue. Just evidence, witnesses, and a deadline he could not bully backward. Later, when the ballroom emptied, Reid handed Brooke a signed transfer. Santoro Holdings had surrendered every exclusive right to her collection. The signature was dated before the gala, before he knew whether she would stay. Brooke read the date twice. Reid had surrendered the leverage when losing her was possible. For the first time, his sacrifice asked nothing in return, and that frightened her more than danger ever had. The document Reid placed on Brooke's workbench contained no proposal, no debt, and no hidden claim. Only her name beside the word owner. 3 weeks after the gala, Santoro Holdings was answering regulators. Reid had abandoned the waterfront partnership that would have tied his company to Wren Harbor, and the foundation had rebuilt its procurement system. Brooke's studio had lost orders during the scandal, but the clients who returned did so because they trusted her work, not because Reid had repaired her reputation for her. She turned the transfer pages slowly. "You gave up the exclusivity, and every future reproduction right. You could have kept some of this." "I could have." Brooke looked at him. "Why didn't you?" "Because your work should never become leverage I can use against you, even accidentally." That answer stayed with her longer than any apology. By autumn, Mercer Metal and Stone had taken over the neighboring storefront. Brooke hired an apprentice, added a second bench, and paid the renovation deposit from genuine commissions and restored foundation sales. Then an offer arrived from a respected design program in Seattle. 6 months, private studio access, national exposure. Reid read the letter only after Brooke handed it to him. "What do you think?" she asked. "I think you earned it." "That wasn't the question." His expression softened. "If you go, I'll miss you. I won't punish you for leaving." The old version of Brooke might have needed him to beg her to stay so she could feel chosen. Instead, she spent 2 days reviewing the program, her expansion plans, her apprentice's training, and what kind of artist she wanted to become. She declined. Not for Reid. The residency would pull her away from the studio she had finally built into the future she wanted. Only then did she go to him. "I'm staying in Philadelphia," she said, "and I want you in the life I'm building here." Reid did not answer with a promise of protection. He offered his hand. Brooke took it willingly. Months later, she began shaping 2 plain wedding bands at her own bench. Even Reid Santoro was forbidden to order those without her approval. 6 months into marriage, Reid still stopped at the painted line beside Brooke's workbench unless she invited him across it. She was resetting a sapphire when he arrived for dinner. He checked the clock, then the unfinished prong. "Reservations in 20 minutes. I need 30. Reid took out his phone. "Then dinner needs 40. Brooke smiled without looking up. The original pendant rested in its velvet box beside the wedding bands Brooke had made herself. Nothing in the studio had become less hers because she had chosen to share her life. When the sapphire clicked into place, Brooke pressed her crescent and flame mark beneath the setting. Outside, a Santoro security car waited, a reminder that Reid's world had not disappeared. Brooke removed her apron and looked at him. "You can come across now." Reid crossed the painted line, only after she said it. Then she reached for his hand first, smiling. Brooke's journey was never about becoming worthy of love. She was already skilled, capable, desirable, and complete before Reid entered her studio. What changed was her willingness to trust her own perception again and to accept support without surrendering autonomy. Reid changed too. Power had taught him to solve fear with control, but loving Brooke required something harder: restraint, accountability, and partnership. Their relationship worked only when protection stopped meaning possession and trust became a shared practice instead of a demand. That idea reaches beyond romance. Healthy love does not erase independence. It makes room for two people to remain themselves while choosing each other repeatedly. Which moment made you believe Brooke and Reid had truly become partners rather than protector and protected? If this story moved you, share your favorite scene in the comments. Subscribe for more Mafia boss romance stories, and join us for the next love story.